Okay, we are live.
Live. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Are we the same four that were on last week? Ryland, me, myself, Zach, and Jennifer? I think so.
I think so too.
It's like the best cast.
Fantastic Four, yeah.
It's like a month and a half, so making it up now.
Happy St. Patrick's Day. I've got my green on. Jennifer, I think that's green. Zach's got a green cup. Ryland is
green socks also, but
I think
Ryland, are you calling that green?
Whenever you have blue, there's green in it. I think that's how it works.
No.
Why do you hate St. Patrick's Day?
I forgot. Okay. Well, it's so snowy today. I was kind of thinking we weren't even going to come into the office at all.
Okay. Well, yes, we're going to do our normal updates, and then if there are any questions in the comments, as always, we will get to them. And I think we can get started. I can start with a quick update. This isn't actually new, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the requirement that applicants for permanent resident status get COVID vaccines. I've seen in the news in the last couple of days some talk about increased cases in Europe that are likely coming here soon. So hopefully that's not the case, but I'm not so sure that we're quite done with COVID. And there is a requirement, either if you're consular processing or applying for an adjustment of status, that as part of your medical exam, you have to show that you are fully vaccinated. And sometimes we get questions about, well, can I ask for a waiver of that? Yes, you can automatically get a waiver if a doctor, for example, says that it's not medically appropriate for you for whatever reason. And you actually won't have to file even a form for that. The doctor will indicate it directly on the medical exam, and there's no need to file a separate waiver form. However, if it's because you do not want to get a COVID vaccine, then you actually do have to file for a waiver of inadmissibility on Form I-601. And the only reason that they will grant it is if it's based on a moral or religious objection. And what's really important that people understand is that's not an easy standard to hit. They want to see that you have an objection to all vaccines, that it's not that you're not picking and choosing and just saying, well, I don't like the COVID vaccine or I don't want to get the COVID vaccine. That won't be an acceptable explanation to them. And then they want to see that it's a sincerely held religious view or moral view. And so I think that for people who, for whatever reason, just don't want to get the COVID vaccine, they sometimes think that they're going to be able to get a waiver of it. And I just don't think it's going to be very easy to get those approved. So just something to be on notice of, that you will have to show that you had, if it's a 2-shot series, you'll have to show that you have at least those 2 shots. And then I think even the 14 days past the second shot before you're able to be granted that benefit.
I wanted to hop in there too, just because I've been thinking about this a little bit lately, and have heard from people that have been able to go to Mexico and then tried to get the shot outside of the United States if they're trying to do consular processing. Mexico has different vaccine policies than the United States. So if you're trying if you're putting off the vaccine for as long as possible and maybe just hoping to get it in Mexico rather than in the United States, do know that Mexico offers different brands of vaccine that may be incompatible with the vaccines that you might get here. So if you get the first one in the United States, it might be you go to Mexico and only AstraZeneca, which isn't even available in the United States, would be offered as your second follow-up vaccine, which, there's still questions about the compatibility of using 2 different brands. So it might not be considered to be fully vaccinated if you get that second dose being AstraZeneca. Also, they have different vaccine availability requirements, similar to how they were rolling out the vaccine in the beginning in the United States, saying that, okay, if you're part of this group at this time, you're available to get a vaccine. I believe, if what I've heard is correct, that in Mexico, they're still kind of doing those rolling groups. Only certain groups of people are available to get it at certain times. So that might be something that would apply to you too, if you are trying to get the vaccine while doing your process at the consulate in Mexico. So just know, if that's what you're banking on, that it might not be the safest route. It might require you to be stuck in Mexico for a certain amount of time before you could re-enter. Okay, should I just jump into my topic?
Sure.
So I really just found something real quick to talk about because I had a busy morning this morning. But there was an Axios story that released, again, talking about some not officially announced plans in the Biden administration, preparing for what they believe will be a huge migrant surge from along the southern border of the United States. Once COVID, I know, as Aaron said, we're not sure if this is going to die down soon, but it's starting to die down a little bit and maybe becoming endemic, just part of what we're used to dealing with in our lives. And so they might be repealing the use of Title 42 to prevent people from entering the United States as Title 42 has been implemented as a health-oriented policy to prevent the spread of COVID into the United States, and it has prevented a lot of people from entering that may have had legitimate asylum claims. And so now that they might repeal the use of that act, they are, according to this Axios report, they're expecting maybe 170,000 migrants crossing the border or trying to cross the border into the United States. And how is the Biden administration going to address that? What could they do to try to make that not such a huge spike of people entering the country? Obviously, we here at Joseph and Hall, we support migration into the United States, but it needs to be done in a humane way. It needs to be done in the way that people have the resources available to them, that when they are able to enter the United States, that they can be supported, they can land on their feet, and they can start their pathway to hopefully citizenship one day. And with so many people that have been denied entry to the United States, it is a question of what do you do once you finally are opening the door to all these people that maybe should have been allowed in years ago. How do you address it properly? And the Biden administration doesn't quite know how to do that just yet. They're trying to figure it out, and they. From what I have seen, I really don't have answers here yet, but it is something that they're looking into. And I know that there has been talks of how to slow it by working with Mexico and working with Costa Rica on what individuals that they're allowing into their countries, maybe asking that those countries require visas, and like basically creating a bottleneck of individuals entering into those other countries, and then they can't enter into the United States. Is that the best solution? No, I don't think that even addresses the people that are already in Mexico, already waiting to enter the United States. But that's at least the details that I saw. I don't know what you do, and it's a tough situation, and the Biden administration, we've already seen, or at least I feel like I've seen, has wanted to appear tough on migration, tough on immigration, to combat all the bad news stories out there. And so like I'm not exactly hopeful for whatever policy is going to come in and whatever process they're going to create for finally letting people in. But we'll see. It's something that details are still emerging about, and I guess we're going to find out what way they go with it. But yeah,
I have very little sympathy for the administration on this. They've intentionally used Title 42 in a way that's just a sham, and now they're freaking out because there's a buildup of people from the from the time that they've been using it and turning people away and expelling people. And it's also, for me, it's harder to have a lot of sympathy about these numbers that they're talking about when you see a country like Poland accepting, I think, hundreds of thousands of people into their country right now. And they're a much smaller country than us. And so I have, very little sympathy. I think we should be able to deal with it. And I, like Ryland, I have very little optimism that it's going to be dealt with in a compassionate and humane way that's consistent with our asylum laws.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Who would like to speak next?
Well, speaking of compassionate and humane ways of dealing with asylum laws, I'll go. So we've talked about this law before. This is or this policy before. It's called the Migrant Protection Protocol, and it does everything but that. Basically, this is a policy that was implemented by the Trump administration, where folks coming to apply for asylum at the border would be turned around and sent into camps at Mexico to await processing of their asylum claims. You might have heard all kinds of stories of folks basically like waiting in line, like a little book that they would pass around to see who could go up to the border and actually make their asylum application on a given day. It's basically, it's been a horrible policy. It's the kind of bastard child of these two laws that one of which is that when somebody comes to the border and is requesting entry, the Department of Homeland Security has the authority to detain them until they've either made their asylum claim, prove that they're eligible for that, or have demonstrated their admissibility, and the ability for the administration to basically turn people around and await processing at the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security's discretion. So the Trump administration basically said, we're going to just turn everybody around and you're going to have to wait in camps until we're ready to process your case. Biden administration, just about right after he took office, said, we're not going to do that anymore, rescinded the policy. And then Texas and Missouri actually sued over it and said that, you know what, you have to keep this policy in place where you are turning people around and putting them in camps at the border until they can be processed. This has gone up the courts, went from this district court judge up to the Court of Appeals in the Fifth Circuit. Fifth Circuit is kind of notorious for giving bad immigration decisions, and so surprise, surprise, it gave a bad immigration decision. Said, even though this is a discretionary decision on the part of the Department of Homeland Security, you got to keep it in place. And the Biden administration, they did keep it in place and actually in some ways expanded it and made it worse. They made the eligibility for this expanded. So it used to be, for example, people from Haiti were not subject to this policy. So different nationalities that were not previously subject to this were suddenly subject to this. And while they were expanding the program, they appealed it to the Supreme Court to actually try to rescind this policy once and for all. And just yesterday, they filed their first brief in the Supreme Court saying, these are the reasons why we should be allowed to rescind it. A lot of it comes down to the fact that, hey, this is a discretionary thing, and Department of Homeland Security has the ability to do what's called a parole of individuals into the United States who don't present a danger to the U.S. and who aren't a flight risk. They are likely to attend their immigration court hearings, which is the overwhelming majority. If you look at the statistics of individuals who are actually paroled into the United States. But yeah, we're now at the part where the Supreme Court says, okay, we'll take a look at this, and hopefully this will mean that we actually get this program taken care of and gotten rid of once and for all. It's been pretty nasty saying, I'm coming up to the border, I'm applying for asylum because here I am in Mexico, and if I stay here, I'm going to be killed. And CBP says, okay, well, while we get to you, go on back to Mexico and wait and find some housing and find some sustenance until we get to your spot in the line. Pretty horrible policy, and hopefully it'll be gone soon after Supreme Court actually hears it, reads the statute, and says, yeah, you're right. This is totally discretionary.
I'm curious how those lawyers grapple with the fact that the Biden administration has expanded it while still arguing that no, we should be allowed to repeal this. Like I'm not sure how you would do that, but I'm sure there's some bending over backwards that they are able to achieve.
Yeah.
All right, Jennifer.
Okay, so mine's just a quick update. Yesterday, the Department of Homeland Security announced that they are designating Afghanistan for temporary protected status, TPS, for an 18-month period that'll begin pretty soon. And I think, let's see, a couple of weeks ago, they also designated for Ukraine. And so both of these designations have been made for people who are already inside the United States, who can't go back to their home country because of the armed conflict going on in Ukraine and Afghanistan. For Afghanistan, it applies to anyone who was already residing in the United States as of March 15th, so as of this past Tuesday. Anybody who comes after that date would not be eligible for TPS. And then for Ukraine, it's March 1st is the arrival date. And so with both of these programs, the initial designation will be 18 months. Obviously, it'll be up for renewal, re-registration. Whether the government decides to do that, we'll have to wait and see. But there are several countries that already get TPS, and they do renew them pretty regularly. And through the TPS program, people are basically in a protected status here in the United States and are able to get a work authorization document.
All right. Well, ending on at least a little bit of good news, so that was a good thing. Looks like there are a few questions. Let's try to get to those.
There are. So Ejaz says that they have a humanitarian parole case. Now they are in Pakistan. They might be from Afghanistan. I'm not entirely sure where they originally came from, but they chatted with Emma on the way to help expedite the case. And the Emma, I guess, submitted reports to their managers. I'm not entirely sure what the question is asking, but it seems like if you're trying to get your humanitarian parole case expedited, Emma is a good way to try to go about it, to explain what your circumstances are, why you need humanitarian parole, your humanitarian parole request to be processed more quickly. And he followed up saying that he gave strong evidence about the case. So will they expedite the case? That's a great question. Of course, it's a discretionary thing of whether or not they're going to actually grant your case to be expedited. Sometimes we have had really strong facts that support an expedite, and the expedite still doesn't occur. Sometimes we do get cases expedited that maybe didn't have the strongest of facts, but they still do have supporting evidence. It sounds like you have some good evidence supporting your expedite, but whether or not it'll actually be granted is we can't say. Hopefully, we hope that it will be, but it sounds like you're doing the right thing, submitting the evidence and communicating with USCIS through Emma and following up with their additional evidence requests. Sounds like you understand the process, and we hope that your humanitarian parole case is expedited.
Just to add on to that, so there's a huge backlog of humanitarian parole cases, and just in our office, we file dozens of them ourselves, and I know that every single one of them we requested an expedited processing as well. I imagine that the vast majority of folks have requested that their humanitarian parole cases have been expedited. It's, I think, just an unfortunate situation where, because everybody's asking for their cases to be expedited, really nobody's having their cases be expedited. So I don't want to say it's absolutely not going to happen, but I think that there is there are a lot of people who are asking for their cases to be expedited, and that doesn't mean that yours won't be. Just means that you got a lot of people who are in the same boat as you.
Yeah. Speaking of people deserving of their cases being expedited, Irina Sullivan says she's a Go plaintiff in Ukraine, and the Russian army bombs the cities every day. Please ask the judge to prioritize and expedite Ukrainian OnGO plaintiffs' cases. It's a humanitarian catastrophe, the genocide of Ukrainians. Our lives are in danger. She asks us to really do something.
Irina, we're watching the news and just cannot believe what's happening in Ukraine. And I'm so sorry. I hope that you and your family are staying safe. The OnGO, as I'm sure you know, the Department of State has gotten a stay of the order for the 481 additional visas being issued, and they have sought, along with us, they've sought expedited briefing at the DC Circuit Court of Appeals on the appeal. We don't have that order from the appeals court yet about how quickly that's going to happen, and we don't know how quickly there's going to be a decision on that. But as it stands, the judge is not going to order a processing of any visas in the immediate term, any diversity visas from 2021 in the immediate term. I think that in the very short term, other types of visas or even humanitarian parole may be more likely, although they're not. It's not like USCIS is processing humanitarian parole requests very quickly at all. So it's not really a great option either. So we are at every step, we're pushing them to move as quickly as possible. Even putting aside what's happening in Ukraine, the OnGO plaintiffs have waited too long, and there's no, it's just unconscionable that they've had to wait so long for a resolution. I'm really, really disappointed that the government's even appealing Judge Mehta's order. But the only thing we can do is push them to resolve it as soon as possible. I know that's not a satisfactory answer, Irina, but that's what's going on.
Suvi, I know she's a DV 2022 plaintiff. She said there's a typo in the last page of the original complaint, and there's mention of DV 2021 in point 5. I'm trying to pull it up now. Is it something she doesn't understand? She was looking at if the amendment has DV 2022 in the same place, but she could only find the original. I'm not sure if there was actually a typo or not.
It is I mean, I don't have it in front of me this second, Suvi. It is possible that there was a typo, although we of course would be mentioning DV 2021. So, but on the last page, my assumption is that would be, it's possible that there was a typo. But if there is, it's nothing to worry about. There are typos in documents that happen, and there's not going to be any confusion about what we're asking for, what we're suing about. So it's not to worry. The briefing that takes place for summary judgment or for a preliminary injunction will be the document that's more reviewed by the court. So it's not to worry, and no need to apologize for your English because it's perfect.
Yeah. Unlike ours, maybe. Who knows? Yeah. Who knows? All right. Well, that was the last question. So I guess that is it for today.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. See you next week. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Green. This is green right here.